Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, in the tech world, we are constantly obsessed with the new frameworks, new languages, new paradigms.
Hmm.
If a library is more than, say, 3 years old, people start treating it like a dinosaur. But today, we are looking at a T-Rex that is learning to do gymnastics.
That is quite the visual, but honestly, it's
Yeah.
pretty accurate. We're talking about legacy software, which is usually a dirty word in our industry.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the world runs on legacy code.
And specifically, we're talking about XOPS. It's a content management system that has been powering websites since, what, the early 2000s?
So it's right.
If you were coding back then, you absolutely remember XOPS. It's reliable, it's everywhere, but let's be honest, the code base really shows its age.
It does. And that's really the tension we're exploring today. We have a stack of documents here detailing Vision 2026 and Vision 2026 Plus.
Right.
It's an initiative to take this 20-year-old legacy system and infuse it with the absolute bleeding edge of modern software architecture.
So we aren't just talking about a fresh coat of paint or, a new admin theme, right?
Oh, no, no. This is a gut renovation. We are talking about moving from what developers lovingly or maybe painfully call spaghetti code to domain-driven design, or DDD.
And the claim here is, it's bold. The sources say this transition can make development 10 times faster and virtually bug-free.
It is a huge claim.
So our mission is to figure out if that's actually true or if it's just, marketing fluff.
Yeah.
We're going to tear apart the architecture, the code comparisons, and the strategy papers to see how they plan to pull this off.
And for anyone listening who manages legacy software, which is basically everyone in enterprise IT, this is a masterclass in how to modernize without a full rewrite.
Okay, so let's start with the villain of our story, spaghetti code. We've all heard the term, but the sources give us a really painful, specific example of what this looks like in the old way of XOPS. They point to a file called submit.php.
Ah, yes, submit.php. It's the classic God file. In the traditional structure, if you wanted to save an article, you sent all the data to this one file. And this file did, well, it did everything.
It's a multitasker, but not in a good way.
To a fault, yeah. It grabs the raw data right out of the form, the POSD variables. Then immediately in the very next line, it runs some validation logic. Is the title empty? Is it too long?
Okay.
Then right next to that, it builds a SQL query string to talk to the database. And then finally, it literally writes HTML to redirect the user.
So you have your presentation, your business logic, and your database storage all mashed into one single script.
Exactly. It is tightly coupled. And here's where it gets really dangerous. The sources highlight that this validation logic checking, if a title is valid, it's not reusable. So if you have an edit.php file for updating that same article,
You have to copy-paste the rules.
you have to copy-paste those validation rules.
Yeah.
And we all know what happens when you copy-paste code.
You change it in one place, forget the other, and suddenly your data is corrupt.
Or worse, you introduce a security vulnerability because you forgot to sanitize the input in that second file.
The other thing that jumped out at me in these old way diagrams was the testing aspect, or I guess the lack of it.
It's a nightmare to test. I mean, because that submit.php file talks directly to the database and it expects a user to be logged in, you can't just run a quick script to test the logic.
Right.
You have to boot up the whole CMS, spin up a database, log in as a fake user, and then simulate a browser request.
Which is slow.
Glacially slow. And because it's so slow and difficult, developers they don't do it. They, test in production.
Which is the stuff of nightmares. Okay, so that's the problem. Spaghetti code is fragile, hard to test, risky to change. So enter Vision 2026. They're proposing clean architecture. Walk us through the high-level concept here.
So imagine a set of concentric circles, like an onion. This is the onion architecture, or clean architecture. The core rule here, the dependency rule, is that the inner circles know nothing about the outer circles.
Okay, so what sits in the center?
The center is the domain. This is your business reality. In our case, it represents the concept of an article. It is pure PHP code. It doesn't know about the database. It doesn't know about HTML.
It doesn't even know it's running inside XOPS.
Exactly. It's essentially an island of purity.
Okay.
Then, wrapped around that, you have the application layer, which handles commands like create article. And only on the very outside edge do you have the infrastructure, the messy stuff that talks to the database or the web browser.
The benefit being, if XOPS updates its core, or if you switch from MySQL to PostgreSQL, the center, your actual business logic, doesn't break.
Precisely. It's insulated.
I want to zoom in on this domain layer because the sources get really nerdy here, and I love it. They talk about something called value objects. This seems to be the secret weapon against spaghetti code.
It really is. In the old way, a title is just a string of text. It's dumb. It could be Hello World, or it could be an empty string, or it could be the entire script of a movie. The code doesn't know until you check it.
And you have to check it every single time you touch it.
Right. But in Vision 2026, they use a value object called article title. It's a class. When you try to create this object, say, article title.fromString, my great post, it runs its own validation immediately, right then and there.
So it's like a bouncer at a club.
That's a perfect analogy. The bouncer checks your ID at the door. If you're not on the list, or if your ID is fake, so if the title is empty or too long, you don't get in, the object literally refuses to exist. It throws an exception.
That completely flips the script.
Yeah.
Because if I'm a developer and I'm writing a function that asks for an article title, I don't have to worry about checking if it's valid.
You don't?
If the object exists, it must be valid. The bouncer already checked it.
Exactly. It creates what we call type safety. You stop writing defensive code. You stop writing scroll and title 500 times. You just trust the object.
There's another example in the source that I thought was really clever. The article slug. For those listening, a slug is the URL-friendly version of a title, like hello-world.
Right. In the old days, you'd have a helper function somewhere called makeSlug, and you just have to remember to call it.
But here, article slug is smart.
It has behavior. You feed it the raw string hello world, and the class itself knows how to lowercase it, strip the exclamation point, and replace the space with a hyphen. That logic is encapsulated. It lives with the data it belongs to.
So we have these smart little building blocks value objects. Now let's talk about the thing they build, the entity, the article itself. The sources highlight that Vision 2026 is leaning heavily into new PHP 8.4 features here.
Yes, and this is where it gets exciting for the syntax nerds. PHP 8.4 introduced something called property hooks, and the XOPS team is using them to clean up the code quite a bit.
How so?
Okay, take the concept of, is this article published? In the old way, that's a complex question you have to check. Is the status published? And is the current date after the published date? And is it not expired?
That is a lot of logic to copy-paste.
It is. But with property hooks, you define a property on the article entity called isPublished. It looks like a simple variable. But when you access it, it runs a hook, a little mini function attached to that property that calculates the answer on the fly.
So to the developer using the object, it's just articles published. Simple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But underneath, it's running that robust logic in one central place.
I also saw they're using enums for the article status.
Yes, article status.
Yeah.
And it's not just a string that says draft, it's a state machine. The enum defines what's possible. For example, the rules might say you can go from draft to published, but you absolutely cannot go from archive back to draft.
And the code actually enforces that.
Strict enforcement. If
Yeah.
you try to force that transition, the system throws an error. It makes it impossible for the software to enter an invalid state. You can't accidentally unarchive an article.
Okay, so we have this beautiful, pristine domain layer, but eventually this data has to land in a database, right? This is the part that always confuses people about clean architecture. If the domain doesn't know about the database, how does it save anything?
This is the dependency inversion principle. It sounds fancy, but it's really just a power play. The domain says, I am the boss here. I need a way to save this article. I don't care how you do it, just do it.
It issues a demand.
It defines an interface, a contract called Article Repository Interface. It just says, whoever implements this must have a save method. Then, way out in the infrastructure layer outside the bubble, you build a XOOPS article repository that actually writes the SQL code.
But why go through that extra step? Why not just write the SQL directly?
Two big reasons. First, flexibility. If you want to switch from saving to a text file or an API, you just write a new repository.
Yeah.
The domain logic doesn't change a bit.
Right.
But the second reason is a killer feature, testing.
Ah, of course. Because you can fake it.
Exactly. You can create an in-memory repository. It just saves the article to an array in the computer's RAM. It acts just like a database, but it is lightning fast and requires zero setup.
Which brings us to the Vision 2026 Plus strategy. The documents distinguish between the standard Vision 2026 and this Plus version. What's the upgrade?
Vision 2026 is the architecture. You can write it all by hand if you want. But Vision 2026 Plus is the ecosystem. They've realized that writing all these value objects and repositories by hand is, well, it's tedious.
It's boilerplate code.
Totally.
Yeah.
So they've released composer packages like libraries. You can just pull in zoopsDDD value object, zoopsDDD repository. You don't have to write the code to validate an email address or a slug anymore.
Yeah.
You just use theirs.
The stats in the ecosystem strategy document are pretty wild. They claim creating a standard CRE module, create, read, update, delete, used to take 2 to 3 days.
And with the Plus packages and the new generator tools, they say it takes 3 to 4 hours.
Wait, that is an order of magnitude difference?
It is. They're effectively industrializing the process. They mention a CLI generator, the command line tool. You type XOOPS make.entity article, and it just scaffolds all the files for you. It builds the entity, the repository, the handler. It removes all the drudgery.
And it's not just the back end, right? I saw that they're tackling the front end spaghetti too with UI components.
Right. No more mixing PHP loops inside HTML tables. You use a component like XDataTable or XStatusBadge. You pass it the data, and it renders a standardized, accessible UI. It keeps the presentation layer clean.
So we've improved the speed of development, but what about the quality? We touched on testing earlier, but the test suite document provides some hard numbers.
This is my favorite part of the source material. They show a test suite with over 2,500 lines of test code. But the number that really matters is the speed. Because the domain tests run in memory, using that fake repository we talked about, they run in milliseconds.
Specifically, creating an article takes 23 milliseconds in the test.
23 milliseconds. In the old way, just booting XOPS and connecting to a real database might take a full second or two per test. If you have hundreds of tests, you're waiting minutes for feedback.
Yeah.
Here, you can run the whole suite every single time you hit save on your file.
That changes how you work. You get that instant dopamine hit, green check mark, green check mark.
It puts you in a flow state, and they're testing things you would never, ever bother testing manually. Like, does the slug generation handle Japanese characters correctly? Does the reading time calculation work if the article is exactly 200 words?
There was a subtle point in the testing strategy regarding reconstitution. Can you break that down? It sounded important.
It is vital for domain-driven design. Think about it. When you create a new article, you might want to trigger events, maybe send an email to the admin or ping a Discord server.
Right, a new article alert.
But when you load an existing article from the database just to display it, you're effectively rebuilding or reconstituting that object. You definitely do not want to trigger those new article events again.
You don't want to spam the admin every time someone reads a blog post.
Exactly. The test suite specifically verifies that reconstitute hell works differently than create. It ensures the object is rebuilt purely without any side effects. That is a level of precision you just cannot get with spaghetti code.
All of this sums up to what they call DX, the developer experience. It really feels like they are trying to make XOPS a place where developers actually want to work.
That is the goal. It's about convention over configuration. In the old XOPS, you could put files anywhere. You had to manually include them. It's a huge mental load. Now they use PSR4 auto-loading.
Which is the industry standard.
So if you're looking for the article entity, you know it's in start domain entity. You don't have to hunt. And because of the strong typing using article title instead of a generic string, your IDE helps you. PHP Storm knows what that object is. It gives you autocomplete. It highlights errors before you even run the code.
And the error messages, they mentioned shifting from fatal error to custom exceptions.
Oh, the difference is night and day. Instead of the screen just turning white or giving you a cryptic code, you get article not found exception. It tells you exactly what went wrong in the language of the business, not the language of the machine.
So bringing it all back home, we started with this premise of time travel and evolution. We have XOOPS, a legacy giant, and we have Vision 2026.
It's really a transformation from a legacy content management system to a modern application development platform. It rivals frameworks like Laravel or Symfony in terms of its architecture, but, and this is key, it runs inside the existing XOPS ecosystem.
That's the takeaway for me. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't have to rewrite your entire CMS to get these benefits.
Exactly. The Vision 2026 module proves you can build an island of sanity. You can carve out a space for clean, modern code right in the middle of a legacy application. And over time, that island can grow.
So for the developers listening who are skeptical or maybe just tired of wrestling with their own spaghetti code, there's a call to action here. You can actually download this.
You can. And you should. The coolest feature is the demo mode. You can download the Vision 2026 module, enable demo mode in the config, and it works without any database connection. It just mocks everything in memory.
So I don't even need to set up a local server with my SQL to see how it works.
No, you can just run it, poke around the secret domain folder, and see what clean, pure PHP actually looks like. It lowers the barrier to entry completely.
I love that. It's transparent. They're saying, don't take our word for it. Look at the code.
Which brings us to the quote that ends all the documentation. The best code is code you're proud to show others.
That really hit me. It's such a powerful standard. It's not about does it work, it's are you proud of it?
And if you look at your submit.php from 2005, you are probably not proud, but this is something you can be proud of.
So look at your code base today. If you feel like hiding it, maybe it's time to look at Vision 2026. Thanks for diving in with us.
A pleasure.
See you next time.